Good afternoon, and welcome to our BIM-MEPAUS webinar today. I'd just like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands that I'm speaking to you from today. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which each of you are living, learning and working from today. Just a quick intro here of you can see the speakers on the screen there. Hopefully myself, Shannon Thomas, I'm the Executive Manager for BIM-MEPAUS. And you'll also hear from Brendan Upton today, who's our Senior Technical Consultant. If you have any questions, if you could please post them in the chat feature of the Teams webinar, and we'll try to answer them throughout the session today, but also hopefully leave a little bit of time at the end for some questions. If you are keen just to see the imagery or the slides in full screen, or once Brendan starts his demonstration on full screen within Teams, you can select more at the top. And then if you click focus on content, that will actually hide the presenters and allow the image to go to full screen. So I'm just going to give you a bit of an update today before we go to Brendan. So just a little bit about the AMCA if you're unaware of who we are. So we're the Air Conditioning and Mechanical Contractors Association of Australia. We've been around since 1961. It's a national association, and we provide a range of services for our members. One of those is BIM-MEPAUS, which is AMCA Australia's initiative to drive digital transformation in the construction industry. And it's been running since about 2010. The initiative itself is really a solution for consistent modelling and consistent documentation or asset information, really built by the industry for the industry. So we take industry needs into account into everything we do. So today I'm just going to quickly take you through some of the things that have changed over the last 12 to 18 months with regards to BIM-MEPAUS. What we're working on at the moment, and then what the future holds for the initiative. So we've delivered quite a few projects over the last 12 to 18 months. Lots changed. So one of the things, quite a significant change for us, was a decision to bring full management of the BIM-MEPAUS initiative internally into AMCA Australia. So that really took off around April 2021. But from there, we then decided to create a whole new BIM-MEPAUS website to make it easier to manage our content and our subscription service. Alongside that, in parallel, we created a completely new BIM-MEPAUS Revit template that was designed and built from scratch in parallel, as I said, with the website. And once those two things were really up and running and finished, that was around July 2021, and that's when we, I guess, officially relaunched BIM-MEPAUS and commenced management of the BIM-MEPAUS subscriptions internally and started engaging with the industry directly, which has been fantastic. Once we had that out the way, we then delivered a major upgrade to the BIM-MEPAUS fabrication content or database, and that was released in September of 2021. We then ran a virtual briefing with Autodesk as the major partner there in November last year, and delivered a half-day online event. And then we got busy. Once we had that out the way, we got busy focusing on our forum, our Construction Innovation Forum, which many of you would know has been running since 2010. So that was delivered earlier this year in April, which coincided with a minor update to the Revit template and another update to the fabrication content, which now includes stainless steel and aluminium services for ductwork. We also announced that BIM-MEPAUS subscriptions were available globally during the forum, so we've now started to have some customers in other countries and other regions. And then September this year, with Brendan joining our team in July, September this year, we launched our training and consulting services. So you can see a lot's happened over the last 12 to 18 months within the initiative. While a lot of those things have changed, some things certainly stay the same, and a lot of our subscribers have also remained engaged and you know, following the BIM-MEP AUS methodology. And we're seeing this subscriber base grow as we develop more content and release more. All the major consultants are on board, other than just a handful who we're currently talking to. But if you did want to have a look at these logos, you can look at these on our website under About Us and then Community. So if you are a BIM-MEP AUS subscriber and you are interested in seeing who else is using it to help with your integrated delivery and collaboration, then you can certainly see that. And if you're not aware already, you can have that conversation. So in terms of our training and consulting program, we've initially started off with offering some training courses. So they're Revit MEP fundamentals and some advanced courses as well. They're 1 day per discipline for the advanced courses. They can be seen on our website. I'm not going to bring that up now, just in interest of time, but all the Revit MEP fundamentals and advanced training courses are posted up on our website with all the details for dates and able to take bookings now. The courses are industry certified by AMCA. They're also authorized by Autodesk, and you're able to attain CPD points from completing these courses. We issue certificates at the end of them. And as I said, our 2023 schedule is up there too. So if you are looking to plan your training program for next year, you can certainly have a look at the dates there and work out what fits within your schedule. One of the other things that's been really exciting for us is we're the first organisation outside of the US to be part of the Autodesk membership training provider program, and really is going to help us with deliver that professional service to our members and to the industry. So we're really excited about some of the things that are coming. So just moving to some of the things we're currently working on. So we already spoke about our training consulting services. So we're looking to expand that into a few other areas, and really weaving in some other things around the Autodesk Construction Cloud services and some other courses in there specifically for BIM-MEP AUS. So that will kind of work as a bit of a pathway after people have completed the Revit MEP fundamentals and advanced courses, or if you're more experienced, you can sort of jump straight into the BIM-MEP AUS specific courses or some of the other ones that we'll have on offer. But keep an eye out for that. We're just in the planning phase at the moment for that, and we'll have more to announce in the coming months. We've been working on some extensive generic electrical content. That coincides with also an electrical legend with a bunch of symbols. Brendan will show you this in a bit more detail once he begins his demonstration, but you can see there on the right hand side of the screen that there's a whole bunch of electrical families that we've created, and at the moment we're just reviewing these for the parameter sets and the data sets, and working these in with their opportunity to work with PowerCAD and also some of the other software out there like Elum tools. So we're just working with those partners in the background to ensure this these families have that functionality embedded. The other thing too is we've got a really big push on manufacturer content for the next 6 to 12 months. We've already done some really great things with Masterflow, and Brennan will also show you the level of quality of these particular manufacturer families and how they work in with BIM-MEP AUS specifications kind of built into it, how they fit within the template and the scheduling, and all. It takes a lot of that that work around documentation out of the drafter's hands, and really provides that drag and drop type opportunity. So just in terms of that content strategy for manufacturers, we can really offer you a whole bunch of advice and support now, or offer the manufacturers support and advice, and it's really based on 3 different scenarios. So if the manufacturer has a Revit expert in-house that develops their own content, we can work with that particular manufacturer and help them develop the content in line with BIM-MEPAUS specifications. If the manufacturer has existing content, we can certainly do the same, review it and provide some feedback on its alignment to BIM-MEPAUS. And then if that manufacturer needs someone to create content for them, we've struck up a bit of a partnership with IGS, who are a local content developer here. So we're working with IGS to help manufacturers develop new content, and that's one of the that's the path that Masterflow took. Also just on our manufacturer content strategies, not just important to BIM-MEPAUS but also to our members. Our AMCA National Board of Directors have recently written a letter to endorse the manufacturer content strategy, which we're sharing with manufacturers as well, really to develop that quality and fit for purpose content. So we're really looking forward to doing more in this space over the next 6 to 12 months. So what does the future hold? As I mentioned earlier, we're expanding our training program. I spoke about the pathway we're developing, the industry certification, the CPD points, weaving in the Autodesk Construction Cloud services. Our electrical content library and legend will continue to evolve and grow as well. I already spoke about the manufacturer strategy on the previous slide. Next year, we've also set dates for user groups. So in terms of engagement, I already mentioned it around our engagement with manufacturers and our plans there, but also our user groups from people within industry, from consultancies and contractors and head contractors, etc., are all, really the heart of the initiative, and that's the piece we're looking to really grow next year. One of the other things that's quite exciting for us too is we have kicked off a project to develop a Revit plugin. We're really excited about that. So the plugin initially will work to automate ductwork numbering, tagging, dimension mapping for systems and fabrication services. And we're looking to release that in the first quarter of next year. So just before I move to Brendan, I'd just like to let you all know that we've set a date for our Construction Innovation Forum. So that's set for the 17th of May next year, and that'll be in Melbourne. So we're just in the planning phase at the moment and setting our streams and technical sessions and things like that. So yeah, as just keep an eye out for some of our news items to come out to provide more detail around the forum. And we'll also, as we publish it, we'll also post things on our website to help give you an update on these things. So look, that's it from me. I might pass it over to Brendan, and then if you've got any questions for myself or Brendan throughout today's session, please just post them in the chat, and we'll do our best to try and answer them. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Shan, and good afternoon, everyone. We just wanted to give you a quick bit of a highlight of some of those things that Shannon's mentioned there with regards to the new features in the template. So hopefully you're seeing my screen there okay. So I'm just going to jump through the template and on a few things here, and what we're really excited about this new electrical content. So I'll jump into the new electrical legend first as a good spot to start here. So basically we're incorporating into the template an electrical legend similar to the previous, the mechanical legend that's existed there for quite a while. So our goal is to expand out into all the other disciplines. So this is the beginnings of the electrical legend that we've got here. So these symbols that we've started to get a kit of parts for. So we've got a group of typical power symbols as a starting point. We've got some lighting, typical kind of lighting and exit lighting symbology families. We've got a group of security items, including cameras and detectors, etc. We've got communications, speakers, intercoms, and some nurse call, beginnings of some nurse call families there as well. Now, all of these symbols that we're seeing here, I'll show you in a minute, we have the actual component families, 3D families for as well. So we'll jump into those in a second, but just here also on this legend, you can see that we've started to bring in some typical kind of electrical abbreviations, as well as your standard BIM-MEPAUS, text styles and dimension styles. Also along with the cable tray and conduit service types and colorations there, as well as per the BIM-MEPAUS specifications. So this is a starting point. Our goal here is to obviously expand this, as Shannon mentioned. When this is released shortly, we'll obviously be keen to gain feedback from you as the users to say, okay, what do we need to include? What further items do we need to add in, etc. And how are the symbols working and looking and things like that. So it'll be good to start getting that feedback as it starts coming through, and we'll look to develop that further. So moving on to have a quick look at this actual electrical content. If I jump into this view here, so these are the, in plan view, these are the symbols of those 3D families. If I jump into the 3D view, just quickly, we can see just a grouping of these families sitting here. So there's a bit of a selection. Our idea obviously was, as I said, to have a good kit of parts of the typical, more common families that are required in electrical design as a starting point. And then we will go from there. These are all built to the same BIM-MEPAUS standards that you will be familiar with if you've used the template elsewhere in all of our existing generic content and manufactured content. So all built to the same standards. Just to highlight, I guess, some of the features to look out for in these families. They are all built as work plane based to give it a bit more, to give you as the user a bit more sort of flexibility to be able to place these into a project and not have to rely on hosts as such, but still have the ability to align and lock them to hosts and planes as well. Some of the other features to highlight, if I go back to plan view, if you change the detail level to fine, you will see the 3D geometry representation. But in coarse and medium is where you will see the symbology, the symbol representation of the families as well. Also, where applicable, as I'm sure most of you will probably be familiar with, where applicable, we have incorporated the ability to offset the symbol independently of the 3D geometry. So where applicable in these families, for example, the GPO outlet, we have these offset X and Y axis, so that gives you the ability to push the symbol around if it needs to be offset, if they're getting on top of each other or overlapping or in line with each other in a plan sense on the wall. One other thing to note there, you might notice this little kind of squiggly line here. You might be wondering what that is. What that is we've turned on the room calculation point feature. For those of you that don't know what that is a feature that allows you to, even if the family is sitting outside of a space in the project or outside of a room, you can use that room calculation point to position that endpoint into the room so that component or item gets calculated within a particular space or room. So we've activated those on all the families where applicable. Okay. We've got, like I said, these exit signs, which give you the ability to switch between different directions. So that's the starting point. I'm sure there's probably some more that we can be doing with exit signs as well, but again, this is a good starting point. For something like let's have a quick look at some of the lighting fixtures here. For something like the track lighting, we've given the ability to not only reposition these lights on the track, but we've also got the ability to adjust the angle. So I could put it in a different angle there, and it will rotate the light fixture accordingly. So if I adjust that, and you can see that's rotating the fixture. Okay, also the tilt angle as well. If I go to the 3D view, okay, and I adjust that one, you can see that it's rotating the fixture around. So a little bit of flexibility there. These can be placed, snapped together if there needs to be more in line. At the moment, we've just got the 2 spots, but again, in the future, maybe there's room for that to be increased to have the ability to add additional lights to the one track, perhaps. So there's some opportunities there on that front. One thing that we have also taken into account is we have added in to these lighting fixtures where applicable, we've built them to be compatible with the photometric files that something like the lighting analysis tools like Illume tools uses as well. So we're taking that into account, as well as Shannon mentioning that most where applicable our electrical families are working with PowerCAD for that side of analysis for cable sizing and other electrical calculations there. In terms of the lighting analysis, we are working as close as we can with AGI and Illume tools to build these lighting fixtures to suit. We are aware that many of you guys who are electrical engineers, consultants, contractors out there are using something like Illume tools and want to have the ability to have these to be able to be calculated in some of those sort of tool sets. So that's something that we're looking at closely and keeping an eye on. And just further to that as well, we are also looking in terms of the training side of things that Shannon mentioned. I will just also say there that again, we are working closely with as much as we can with AGI and the Illume tool set to incorporate some of that into our training as well, moving forward to some of those advanced training courses. So keep an eye out for that. There'll be some more info on that coming through shortly as well. So a few of those other lights, we've got down lights, typical down lights, indicator lights. We've also got a wall and or floor light box there as well. Okay, again, it's a work plane based. So when you're placing it in, you can select place on work plane, and you can either align it to the floor, or you can align it to a wall and adjust its offset from that level. Okay, so that's how they all typically work. Probably one of the last things here, just while we're on this content, to show you is, again, similarly to the others, some of the features of these cameras. Okay, so these CCTV cameras that we have started with here, we've got a wall version, we've got a ceiling mounted version. With both of these, again, we have some rotation and some tilt angle options here that allows us to adjust those values. And if I adjust the tilt angle as well, I can get that to move around accordingly. Similarly with the ceiling one as well. Okay, we have a tilt angle here that can be adjusted. So again, if you're in the electrical discipline and you have some use for these, we'll be, as I said, very keen to get you to start testing these once we release these and get your good feedback so that we can continue to develop these further and build even better quality and further additional items as well. All right. So moving on, if I jump back to the floor plan view, there's another area here I just wanted to highlight. This has been in the template for prior to this last release, but it is still fairly new, so some of you may not be as familiar with it. And this is to do with cable trays. So just still while we're on the electrical topic, so with cable trays, there is a newer clearance zone functionality that we've introduced into the. So I'll just quickly explain how that works. So if I jump across here and just model a bit of cable tray here really quickly, I might just change the elevation height there. Okay, so if I just draw a piece of cable tray here, I'll just draw it, let's say 2100 long, and I'll turn the corner. I'll go 2100 again. Okay, so I've just drawn a very basic piece of cable tray here. Okay. All right. I'll flick to the 3D view because it's a bit easier to show. Okay, so here's that piece of cable tray here that I've just drawn. I'll just zoom in on that. Basically, prior to this functionality, what we had in terms of clearance zones was a separate family. Previously in the BIM-MEPAUS template, it was a separate family that was essentially just a changeable 3D box that the users were able to basically trace over the top of any cable tray they had modeled, and then they could change the height, the width, and that was essentially the clearance zone. It was a solid, extrusion essentially. It had transparency to it, so you could see through it, but it allowed it to be clashed against. So it allowed for cable tray brackets, rods, that access area around it to be able to be coordinated and clashed against. That was all well and good, but it was a little bit limiting, and it meant there was a lot of management. If things moved, if the tray moved around, they had to come back and move with it, and it was a bit of mucking around. So the new sort of iteration of this clearance zone and cable tray is a little bit better. It's still essentially a workaround to a certain extent, but it's a little bit more locked in and automated to a certain extent. So I'll just quickly explain. Basically, what we've done is we've built into the actual cable tray fittings families a clearance zone solid geometry. So if I select that elbow there, that bend, I should say, I'll turn on the clearance visibility here. You can see it turns on that zone. And then we have some other options here for the clearance length A, length B, and also the height, so tray above, tray below, and width, so size of tray. So basically the idea is that it has an extension along the straight essentially. So the idea is that you interrogate and ascertain the length of the piece of straight. So it's 1650, and then you add that to the clearance length A parameter, and that will push that out there. This one here is about the same at 1650, so I'll do the same for clearance length B. Okay, and that will move that around. So what that means is that if the tray moves to an extent, it will pretty much move with it. It just means that there'll be at least one length that you'll just need to update basically, but everything else will move with it. If it goes up and down, if the elevation changes, it's going to move with it. Okay, so it's a little bit better functionality there. Okay, and as I said, it is still just a solid extrusion. It's got a transparency on it, so it will allow you to be able to be clashed against, and you can change the height and the width of it as well. That's all done within the properties of the family. Okay, so just be aware of that. If in the plan view, it has a representation to show that clearance zone on as well, if it is switched on. Okay, and within the template itself, there is actually a new little cheat sheet here view under the sheets section, and if you open that up, it has a bit more of an explanation about how that clearance zone works. So you can refer to that. But any questions on any of that, any of this functionality, obviously, you guys have the ability to reach out to us. There's always opportunities to ask questions and give feedback, as I said earlier. But this cheat sheet is something we will look to expand as we add more newer features into the template as well. It's a good way to communicate some of this functionality as well. All right, moving along, we have some on the piping side of things. Okay, something that's reasonably new as well. If I jump over to the pipe tool, we have the same pipe types that we had previously in terms of material types. And for those of you that haven't seen, we then had those new pipe types introduced as per the BMA piping spec, which outlined the pressure classes and the jointing specifications for your different mechanical pipe work. So that's all still here. We've got the different pressure ratings here, and then you can see, for example, you've got copper going up to diameter 50, and then it goes to copper press fit, and then above diameter 50, it goes to copper brazed. And so there's a whole bunch of those. There's carbon steel, there's welded, etc. So there's a whole range of those, and the details of those can be or are explained and can be referenced within the BIM-MEPAUS piping spec. So if you do want to know more about that, please refer to that, which you can access on the BIM-MEPAUS website under the specification section. But the other thing I just wanted to highlight here with regards to the piping is that we have also introduced, some of you might be familiar with previously, we had a couple of Victolic pipe types in there. We have been working closely with Victolic, as we always have been, and we've introduced essentially the entire sort of Victolic piping range. And so you'll see there's a bunch more Victolic pipe types in the template itself. And these have all been updated to the latest functionality for those as well. Okay, so be aware of that. One little thing on the duct fittings to just highlight here as well is with the new iteration or new build of this template at the beginning of this year or end of last year, as Shannon mentioned. Since then, there's a few things that we have been revisiting and just refining and as we go. And one of those things is probably not so much a major thing here, but is the turning vanes on applicable duct fittings. Okay, we're looking to make sure that those are all functioning correctly. So having the ability to sort of turn those turning vanes on and off, and even potentially adding in some further functionality on those as well into the future too. So watch this space around that. We may have some more updates on that shortly, or within the next template release as well. Okay. All right, I'm going to switch over to talk about the pumps now. So this is coming back to the manufacturer content. Shannon mentioned the master flow pumps, which we've done a bit of work with. Okay. I'm going to show you how we'll have a quick look at those, and I'll show you how they function within the template and how they, for example, schedule with our standard BIM-MEPAUS industry schedules here that we have within the template defined. Okay, so if I quickly place, I'm going to do our BIM-MEPAUS generic pump. I'm just going to place one of those in here just for reference, so I can show you how that schedules. And then I'll bring in the master flow. I'll maybe do a couple of iterations of this master flow pump here, centrifugal pump. So I'll do one, and I'll do the 2.2. That will do. Okay. Now, in terms of the functionality of these master flow pumps, I'll just jump to the 3D view. So here they are here. So graphically, first of all, graphically they're looking pretty good. Okay. Geometrically, they are as detailed as they need to be, but not over modeled. Okay, so they're still quite efficient families, but they still look quite decent and look the part. Looking at like what we always say with the manufacturer content or any content in BIM-MEPAUS, looking at it, it's generally easily recognizable as to what it actually is, and further to that, what actual manufacturer it is as well. So you can see we've got the master flow logo and whatnot. But I guess more importantly, the functionality of the family. So we've got things like clearance zones that are able to be switched off and on and resized. And then even more importantly, I guess, is the data side of things. We've got the whole gamut of the BIM-MEPAUS shared parameter data sets that are loaded in and accessible on the family. Okay, so not only has this been built to the manufacturer master flow specifications, but we have incorporated, as we always do with the manufacturer content, we've incorporated the BIM-MEPAUS shared parameters in where applicable, so that they schedule accordingly in our projects. Okay, and I'll give you a quick look at that now. If I jump over to the centrifugal pump schedules here, okay, if I go to the design schedule, which essentially will just display generic pumps, which is what this one is here. If I jump into that schedule view, you can see there's that generic pump, and I'm not seeing the master flow ones because there's filters in the background to control what's shown on what schedule, right? If I have a look at the properties of the generic pump, you can see under the identity data that it is just a generic, and it's just a BIM-MEPAUS of the manufacturer, okay, or displayed here as placed here as the manufacturer, okay, because it's just a generic pump. There's no branding. Whereas if I click on the master flow pump and we have a look under the identity data, you can see that it has master flow in there and its details about its modeling and model codes and things like that. As well as, we've introduced VBIS codes into this as well, which we are heavily using nowadays for categorization and for filtering and for scheduling and data export. So you can see that is what then Revit uses to differentiate this from a generic pump, and hence why it displays in certain schedules and doesn't in others. And so coming back to the schedule view, there's a filter to say only show the generic pumps in the design schedule as it's showing here. And then as we come across to the procurement schedule, right, you can see there's those two rows representing those two master flow pumps that I placed in this project. Okay, and you can see, here's a clear representation of the detail of what parameters are included. So these are all BIM-MEPAUS parameter sets here. Some of these values in this case will be 0 or not calculated because it's not connected into a system at this point. But you can see this is all then, most of this is for the user to then start to fill out, okay, and populate. Okay, so just to be aware that, just like all of our other manufactured content, these pumps are built to that same consistent standard so that they will schedule correctly. And then you are able to then pull that information out of Revit and go outside to other databases to, for procurement, for commissioning moving forward into the project phases as well, for example. Okay. All right. As we said earlier, if there are any questions on anything I'm showing here, please feel free to add it into the chat. Otherwise, we're happy to reach back out and take some of these offline as well. If some of you want to have a more detailed look at some of this content or a further demonstration as well. So keep that in mind as well. The last thing I just wanted to jump into here, guys, was to have a quick look at the fabrication content. Shannon mentioned that there has been an update to that content over the last sort of 6 to 12 months. A couple of major sort of updates and overhauls, rebuilds of the database. So I just wanted to highlight some of those. There's quite a lot of updates, and you can actually reference the whole entire list of updates on our website. If you go to the fabrication content section, there are some PDF documents that you can download. But just to highlight some of the sort of main ones, just to show you, as Shannon mentioned, there has been some new services introduced. So we've got the stainless steel services through 304 and 316. We've also got the aluminium services, so they've been added in. Okay, with some additional items have been added in, particularly if I go to the miscellaneous section here, the miscellaneous palette. Okay, we've got things like these block ends. Okay, so block ends with multiple, 1, 2, or 3 splitters. Okay. Spin that around. So you can see you've got the ability to edit those now, and you can control, to a certain extent, you can control the sizes of those spigots and where they're positioned, whether they're central or whether, whereabouts they are positioned in the diameters and things like that as well. So there's some new items there for those block ends. There's been some updates to connectors across the board as well. If I just go back to the rectangular, and I grab and edit just a standard piece here. Inside of the connectors here, there's been some updates to this connector list. It's kind of been overhauled a little bit, cleaned up. Some updates to the TDF, particularly TDF connectors and steps and stuff as well. So be aware of that if that's something that you need to access. Okay. Bends with no vane splitter option. So the radius bend is there, but there's also been a radius bend no splitter added in as an option as well. So this gives you, for example, the ability to, if I add that one in there, if I edit that part, at the moment it's a half width radius. If I change that to something a bit smaller, okay, you can see then the splitters added in. Okay, but we do have the option to have no splitters in there now as well. Okay, so again, keep that in mind. And then also back in the miscellaneous, miscellaneous area here. We've got some additional fittings like double and three-way shoe pieces. Some of these pieces that weren't there previously to a certain extent have been added in, as well as some of these planter boxes and other sort of more bespoke or niche sort of fittings in here that are not typical ones. Okay. We've also got the dampers in there as well, if you're not already aware. And with your exporting out from Revit to MAJ as well, just while we're on this, you can now, in Revit 2023 at least, you can now, there's a lot more options to export inline parts, for example. So if you've got a damper on a run, you can export that out, and you have the option to export it out as a Revit family, or even as another particular ICM part or fabrication part. Okay, so there's some options there on that front as well. So we've just continued to expand that library out as well. The hangers are pretty much what were there before previously, and again, they work quite smartly if you're not already aware. Something that we're very excited about, as Shannon mentioned, is the beginnings of our development into API Revit plugins for some of these workflows. Shannon mentioned the tagging and the detailing side of things and duct numbering. Another area that we are potentially looking at, possibly in the future next year, is some tools around the hangers as well. So watch this space. We could have some information there on that front as well. But with that, I think that's probably it for me, Shannon. So I will hand it back over to you, and thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks, Brendan. Great, fantastic demonstration as always. So really well explained. Maybe what we'll do there, Brendan, I might just keep you there, mate, if you can. So maybe while we're waiting for some questions, I think Kwok's actually presented one, so I'll just
G'day, Kwok.
read it.
How you going?
Hey, Kwok, I'll just read this out. So great presentation, Brendan. Glad to see the latest updates. I just have a question regarding cable trays. Though we have nominal widths, do we have options to set actual width of cable trays, or would the best way to do that is by utilizing the clearance component?
We have included some sizing in the cable, like as much as you can do. They're just a little bit limited with Revit. And in fact, I wonder if you're referring to Revit cable tray or fabrication cable tray. But either way, we have added in the added in size Revit cable tray. Okay, so with the Revit cable tray, we have included in the sort of the sizes in the size catalog when you go into the backend settings. I don't think the best way would be to utilize the clearance zone, because that is not going to change the width of the tray, if that's what if I'm understanding that correctly. But there's nothing stopping, the thing with Revit is nothing stopping a user from adding in any width. It's not as controlled as say the diameters of the pipe, for example, where it has to be pulled from the size list, and it'll either round up and down if a user enters in a different value. So anyway, look, hopefully that answers that question. If not, let me know. And yeah, happy to take some conversation on that offline further as well if need be. I don't know, Shannon, if you wanted to add anything more for your knowledge.
I think you covered it mostly. It looks like Kwok's he mentioned it was for cable Revit tray and that he was referring to. So I think we're good there. And yeah, certainly. I mean, the only other thing I'd add is we've got built-in the radiuses. There's certain radiuses set. So all our generic cable tray and ladder and baskets all been set based off manufacturer-specific sizes. So typically the generic content would try to suit all manufacturers. Is usually how we do it. So that's where some of the widths or at least the radiuses of the fittings or the bends come into it.
Sorry, Shannon, I've just reread that question again, and I may have misunderstood slightly. I think perhaps also on that as well is the fact of actual compared to nominal sizes. So the sizes that we've put in the backend settings are, yes, probably the nominal sizes. So when Crocker said there, or is the best way to do the width, the actual size is user clearance, then yes, I'd say probably yes, reading that again, to allow for hangers and brackets and things that are more, that are bigger than the actual width. So yeah, that probably is a good way to think of it as well. So
okay, no worries. Question here from John McCann. Thanks for the demo. Anything on bus ducts? So look, to be fair, that's probably something I can answer. We would be looking at that in 2023. So hopefully from today, and looking, to be fair, from the industry, we've had a fair few questions around the multidiscipline aspect of BIM-MEP AUS, and yes, it's, in the past it's sort of been heavily favoured towards mechanical, but hopefully now you can see we are certainly pushing the multidiscipline aspect, and there's a whole bunch of additional electrical content to come based on what Brendan demonstrated today. Bus ducts, look, just being transparent, we'll put that on the list. I know a lot of electrical consultants, engineers and contractors are asking for the same thing. So yeah. Certainly some same questions come from PowerCAD about the opportunities to develop that too. So, but look, something we would certainly look to tackle in 2023. Hopefully that gives you an idea. But I mean, look, part of our user groups too, we will try to listen to the needs of the industry and then perhaps prioritize some of the things that you would ask us to work on sooner rather than later. So if you're not able to get to some of the user groups, certainly run or post some some queries or questions in our through our website, but we'll certainly keep obviously bus ducts down as an option to look at for next year. Certainly if there's any other questions, run them in the chat. Maybe just Brennan, if I could throw to you, maybe, and you might have explained this, but just to elaborate on with those electrical families that we've got, is there options on how you place them? So in terms of, can they be hosted in a wall, in free space, that type of thing? And is there flexibility around the way the families have been created, or at least the options to how they're sort of placed in a model? So then if a new architectural kind of model comes through and it's linked and something moves, like how does that affect the placement of the families?
Good question. And that's one of the reasons why we've gone down the route of work plane base, because if it's not relying on a host from a linked model as such, so it's not, so you don't run into the risk of, like as you say, losing families if a host moves or gets deleted. There's no risk there, but you can still align them and lock them so they do move with those elements at the same time. So it's a little bit more, there's a few things to be aware of. And again, that's probably an area where if someone needs more information, that's something where we could help them with some BIM-MEPAUS training and upskilling. So there's a few steps involved. But to answer the question, yeah, we've kind of tried to steer as much away from hosting them as such, for that fact.
Yeah, sure. Okay, a couple more questions coming in. From the presentation, the VBIS parameters were added as type parameters, if I saw correctly. From the VBIS website instruction, it says it should be added as instance. So we've added, so firstly, our VBIS parameters are a shared parameter within the BIM-MEPAUS text file, and then we typically use the Autodesk interoperability tools function to select and place the classification code. So in terms of the depth of the VBIS structure, we would typically place them as a type parameter rather than an instance, mainly because the level of the VBIS code structure, it doesn't sort of dig down deep enough from to label each family as an instance. If there are any things where that might be incorrect or we've got that wrong, certainly reach out to us and let us know where you would want to have a VBIS code as an instance. The beauty is we can go back to the VBIS guys and let them know that this has come up as a potential issue, and if it could be maybe a code missing for a particular product. I think the beauty of the VBIS code and system is it's Australian based. It's based on Australian products. So typically it would cover all Australian products, and if not, they're pretty quick to respond with new codes, and then we can weave them into either into the BIM-MEPAUS content or manufacturer content, or at least they're then available for you guys to use the interoperability tools to you know, to populate your families with those particular VBIS codes. So hopefully that answered that question from Julian. If I've got that wrong, just reach out, please, mate. Another one here. Good morning. I have one question for the color of the fabrication systems. How do you change the color of the fabrication element? So it's the same way you change it in Revit.
Yeah, I could probably answer that one, Shan. So there are still some limitations on that one, unfortunately. In Revit 2023, at least, I think possibly in 2022, although I'd have to check, but in 2023 at least, the filterings do work. You can adjust colors of the fabrication content, like you can with Revit content. But just be aware that in past versions of that has been a bit limited in past versions of Revit. So you probably find if you're in an older version of Revit, potentially you probably find you can't add view filters, you can't add change of colors and whatnot. It's only in the later versions of Revit where that becomes available. There is still, even in 2023 though, even that colors work, but there's still limitation with hatching. Hatching doesn't work either, so be aware of that. So hopefully that answers that.
That's it for questions. I know we've got a few more minutes to go, and certainly happy to take some more questions now if anybody has any. If you're interested in talking to us, I might just steal the screen for a sec here, Brendan, if that's all right.
Sure.
Just to let you know again, so myself and Brendan, our names and roles are up on the screen there, and probably the best way to contact us is either through the website, and there's a contact us feature or function on there, and the alternative is to email us through that email address you can see on the screen there. So BIM-MEPAUS@amca.com.au. Just maybe while we are just seeing if there's any other questions, I'll just turn this off for a second and just check, but can't see any questions at the moment. The other thing I could probably quickly show everybody is just how some of the details of our training courses. So I'll just share my screen again, just real quick. So if you are interested in certainly any of our training courses, you can come here and have a look at our details about our program. You can see that our BIM-MEPAUS courses are coming soon, and also a more expanded program. At the moment, we have our fundamentals courses here ready for anyone, either yourselves or maybe some of your team members, to come and you know, be a student in the courses. So we've got a combination of online and classroom based ones. You can see all the dates here. You can basically just book online. This one here's only got one slot left, so if you're keen to get any training in 2022, then I'd encourage you to jump on that quickly. All the details of the course, everything's there. You know, as we said, you've got industry certification, and you fill out your form online through Autodesk, and you'll receive your certificate of completion. But everything else is, I won't go through all of that now, but you can just click on each of these links and find out all the details about our courses. The Revit Advanced courses for each of the disciplines is also here, so you can come and have a look at the two courses we've got for this year, and also our program for 2023. So maybe just keep an eye out for those. If something's there that's missing, or you want to ask us some more questions, just please reach out to us either through the link or give us a call directly. Happy to have a chat to anyone and everyone that's got any questions. And then if you are keen to just have some dedicated consulting one-on-one with Brendan, I think most of you would know Brendan's got a heap of experience and very knowledgeable, so can certainly help you with any options around company-specific tasks that you might want to do. So just a quick little bit of a plug there, I guess, around our training and consulting program, but really just wanted to let you guys know that those options exist, and we're doing a bunch of promotion around that. So I think we're pretty good there. Doesn't look like any other questions are coming through. Was there anything else, Brendan? Just you're on mute, mate. But is there anything else you wanted to cover before we
I think
before we
we're
wrap
good
up?
there, Shan. I can't see any more questions that come through. So yeah, I think we're good.
Fantastic. Well, look, just a big thank you to everyone. Well, certainly to Brendan, firstly, for a great demonstration as always, and also to everybody that's dialed in and shared, spared your time, I guess, to listen to us today. So thanks, and we're really looking forward to bigger and better things in 2023. We're really excited about the initiative and the momentum that it's got behind it. Again, this is an initiative by the industry for the industry, so really keen to expand the engagement next year with industry and manufacturers. So again, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.